Maura will start with the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Members are hereby summoned to attend the meeting of the Planning Committee, which will be a hybrid socially distanced meeting to be conducted remotely via WebEx and also physically in the chamber of the Guildhall on Wednesday, the 6th of April 2022. Alderman Alan Breslin.
Here, Maura.
Thank you. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Online, Maura.
Thank you, Derek. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Maura.
Thank you, Keith. Alderman Hilary McClintock.
Here, Maura, online.
Thank you, Hilary. Councillor Jason Barr.
Here, Maura.
Thank you. Councillor John Boyle.
Here.
In the chamber, thanks. Councillor Angela Dobbins. Councillor Angela Dobbins. I'll come back. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
And Shaw, Maura.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
Sure, Maura.
Thanks, Christopher. Councillor Dan Kelly. Councillor Dan Kelly. I'll come back to Dan. Councillor Patricia Logue.
Shaw, Maura.
Thank you, Patricia. Councillor Kieran Maguire. Thank you. Councillor Philip McKinney has sent his apologies. And Councillor Sean Mooney.
Here.
Thank you. Just go back and double check, Chair. Councillor Angela Dobbins. No. And Councillor Dan Kelly. No. Thank you, Chair.
Maura. Declaration of members' interests. You can do it as we go in, or if you want to declare it now. We'll move on to chairperson's business. There's a few items. If I take item 7, there's been a request for a site visit, which I have approved, so that'll be withdrawn today. Maura and Eamon will take the rest.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, members, I just want to draw your attention to some of the late items which you'll have already received. In terms of application 1 on the list, we've received an email from Mr. Dermot Monaghan, objector, with a letter from CBRE and a draft ACOM assessment, and that was received on the 1st of April. We've also received an email from Chris Bryson, who's the agent, and that was received on the 4th of April. Those will be in front of you, members. Item 3. I'm sorry. Apologies.
My apologies, I haven't read the broadcasting statement. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This webcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. If you're seated in the lower public seating media areas, it is possible that the recording cameras will capture your image and will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. Thanks. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just running through the late items then again, we've covered item application 1. Application 3, members, we've got a late item in on that as well. And that's a letter from Alan Boyle, the agent, photographic survey of water courses. And that was received on the 1st of April 2022. I just want to say, members, as a result of that information that was submitted, officers need to reconsult with Rivers, and we wouldn't be in a position to make a recommendation or a decision today, so we've had to remove that also from the schedule on that basis. Item 5, members, is also has a late item, and that's photos and a site plan from the agent, Andy Tate, and that was received on the 31st of March. So that's really all for late items, Chair.
Okay. Move into the right one.
Sorry, Chair. I also just wanted to update members in regard to the next planning committee date, just to allude you to the fact that we have the actual committee date is moved from the start of April to the 18th and the 19th of May. Sorry, rather than start of May to the 18th and 19th of May, apologies. So that's just to make sure that you have that in your diaries. Thank you. It's me.
Good Chair. Maura, I'm looking for a bit of an update. I know there was a scheduled special planning committee meeting, meeting scheduled for the end of March. They specifically deal with number of social housing applications that were on the system. That scheduled meeting was deferred. Is there any new date for that, or is there any possibility that those applications will be coming in a normal scheduled planning committee? I just want a wee bit of clarity around that.
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Jackson, that was our normal protocol that at the end of the year, we would have always had that in, and we just, depending on what stage the applications were at, and this particular year, the applications that we may have been ready at that time weren't ready. But we are hoping to bring forward other major applications, social housing applications, hopefully in the next meeting. So it just will obviously depend on things like consultees and submissions and that. So thank you.
No query. Councillor Kelly has now joined the meeting. That could be recorded. Move to item 6 and matters arising from the meeting of the 2nd of March, page 1 to 12. Any matters arising? Do we have a proposer?
I propose it.
Councillor Breslin, seconder. Councillor Sean Minnie. Moving to item 7, and as it said, the running order is 1, 2, 5, 6, and 4. So just before we move on to item 1, there is late items, and I'll give you a few minutes to read them. Okay. Okay, members, are we ready? Okay, Sarah, do you want to take us through it?
Thanks, Chair. Item 1 is LA 11 2020-0244F. This is for the erection of 98 dwelling units and associated ancillary works. It's for 58 dwellings and 40 apartments, and the site is located north of Faustina Retail Park and south of Templemore Road, Derry, and the recommendation is to approve. So this is a site location plan. The site is 2.62 hectares and is vacant lands located off the same access as Faustina Retail Park from Branch Roundabout. The site is on unzoned land as defined in the Derry Area Plan 2011. It is relatively flat in topography with shrubbery within the site and fencing on its perimeter. The site is partly overgrown with vegetation and there is unused tarmac covered area to the north of the site. So this is an aerial photograph of the site. The site is located in a mixed residential and commercial area. Existing residential developments are located north, east and west of the site. East is a residential development of College Glen, which is a low-density development of detached and semi-detached dwellings. North is Templemore Mews and Donald Casey Court, which has a higher residential development of apartments and bungalows. Springtown Shopping Centre is half a mile from the site. Templemore Sports Complex is located northwest of the site and only 0.1 mile from the application site. Faustina Retail Park is immediately adjacent to and south of the application site. So this is a photograph as a view of the site from Branch Road. These photographs of the application site with views towards College Glen on the left-hand side photograph and a view towards Templemore Mews and Donald Casey Court on the right-hand side photograph. This photograph shows the existing entrance to Faustina Retail Park off the fifth arm of Branch Roundabout. This is a photograph showing the properties at Templemore Road, and the existing properties are Donald Casey Court and Templemore Mews, which are located opposite the site. This is a photograph showing the existing boundary onto Faustina Retail Park at the eastern part of the site. This photograph shows the service road which serves Faustina Retail Park and separates the site from the existing dwellings at College Glen. So in terms of consultees, DFI roads have no objection. Draft conditions have been provided until the PSD is signed off. DFI Rivers, SES, and Land Fisheries Regulation Unit, Natural Environment Division, Northern Ireland Water, Environmental Health, Locks Agency and HED Historic Monuments have no objection. The site is identified in an area of housing need within the West Bank housing area, and the Housing Executive confirmed that the updated housing need projection, as confirmed by the NIHE in email on the 16th of March 2022, is 2,895 units over the period of 2021 to 2026, and the Northern Ireland Housing sunlight, traffic impacts and congestion, sewage and water impacts, insufficient open space, air quality and noise pollution, contamination, impacts on nesting birds, concerns that the proposal is for social housing, antisocial behaviour, lack of facilities for young people, devaluation of properties, impacts on the viability of the retail park, which will be prejudiced by DFI Road's proposals to upgrade the A2 Buncrana Road, with closure of the direct access route from Branch Roundabout, would undermine the economic viability of the retail park. Objection to the major road proposal through the middle of the site, concerns about rat running, and considers that retaining the fifth arm from Branch Roundabout would be the best option. So this layout is the proposed site layout pre-A2 works. This proposal is for 98 residential units in total, comprising of 58 dwellings and 40 apartments. There is one detached dwelling, a mixture of semi-detached, terraced dwellings and 40 apartments. DFI Roads, during the processing of the application, raised concerns in relation to the potential impact on the future delivery of an element of the A2 improvement scheme. This application has therefore been designed so as not to impact on land that may in future be required to facilitate the construction of a link road through the site to connect Templemore Road to Faustina Retail Park and sufficient land for enabling works. This layout proposes an access into the site from Templemore Road and will provide a new junction with a Ghost Island right-hand turn lane into the site from Templemore Road. A portion of the potential route of the proposed A2 improvement scheme runs through the application site, and this is the area that is shown in red on the attached plan. No development is proposed under this application on this part of the site, and it will be retained as green space as part of this proposal. So this layout is for information purposes only, and this shows the proposed site post A2 works. The developer has taken into account the potential future A2 road scheme and has left sufficient land to accommodate the potential route of the A2 through the application site. The plans submitted as above with the application are for information purposes only and demonstrate how the proposal can be developed post A2 roadworks if this scheme is implemented by DFA Roads. It demonstrates that this proposal for residential development will not prejudice the delivery of the potential works proposed for the A2 upgrade scheme. Both versions of the layout are based on the design plans currently available for the upgrading of the A2. The potential A2 works as currently being considered by DFA will involve the abandonment and stopping up of the fifth arm of Branch Roundabout. This is currently unadopted, and as part of the proposals, DFA are considering stopping up the fifth arm of Branch Roundabout. This means that the main access road to Faustina Retail Park could be through the application site. If this A2 design comes forward, then both the apartments and dwellings can then be accessed via the new link road. This proposed residential development shows that it will not prejudice the potential development of the A2 road improvement scheme, and both the pre and post A2 layouts demonstrate that access arrangements to the site are acceptable and will not prejudice road safety. As advised, the post A2 works drawing, as on the screen, is for information purposes only and will not be issued in the event that approval would be granted for this residential development. So in terms of the late item representation, one late item representation was received on Friday the 1st of April 2022. This was accompanied with 2 reports, one from ACOM and a CBRE letter. Members will note that the agent has provided a response to the late item objection, and this is included in your packs. So in summary, the objector and owner of Faustina Retail Park, Threadneedle Pensions Limited, does not accept the response provided by DFI Roads to the representation on the application, and a summary of that objection and the Roads response is set out in Officer's Report. They maintain the position that the closure of the fifth arm of Branch Roundabout will have a significant adverse impact on access and travel times to and from Faustina Retail Park, and accordingly would have significant adverse impact on the viability of the retail park. The objector attached reports from ACOM and CBRE to demonstrate this and advised that these were sent to DFA and their consultants ARAP in January 2022. The representation states their client will continue to oppose the DFA proposal to close the current access to Faustina Retail Park from Branch Roundabout. So officers have given consideration to the late item. The late item submissions relate to the impact of the potential A2 upgrade, including the potential closure of the fifth arm of Branch Roundabout and a new access to be provided from Templemore Road to access the retail park and the
Sarah,
implications.
Could I just stop you a second? Can all members see the information online? No, there's something popping up on the screen. Can all members online see it?
Chair, I can only see the lit items for consideration.
That's okay.
That's the same as me, Chair. Angela here. Officers consideration of late item. That's on our screen.
Okay, dead on.
Okay. So officers have considered the late item. The late item submissions relate to the impact of the potential A2 upgrade, including the potential closure of the fifth arm of Branch Road Roundabout and a new access to be provided from Templemore Road to access the retail park and the implications that this will have in Faustina Retail Park. The current residential application in front of members today does not include the closure of the fifth arm of the roundabout. The proposed site layout plan uses the fifth arm to service Site B containing the apartments and therefore the proposal is based on the fifth arm of the roundabout remaining as existing. Access to the residential development on the upper portion of the site is proposed from Templemore Road with a new right-hand turning lane. The agent has provided a post A2 layout for information purposes only to demonstrate to DFI Roads how the site would operate and function should the potential A2 works progress sometime in the future, i.e. future-proofing the proposed site layout. The A2 road improvement scheme will be subject to its own assessment and consideration of all matters by DFI Roads as part of a separate process. So in terms of the proposed development, the dwellings are located on Site A, which is the upper part of the site, and the apartments located on Site B, the lower part of the site. This proposal is for 58 dwellings and 40 apartments. The apartments range from 2-storey to 4-storey in height and are dual frontage onto external and internal roads, including Templemore Road and Branch Roundabout. The apartments onto Templemore Road are 2-storey in height and were redesigned during the processing of the application when concerns were raised regarding scale, massing and design. The nearest existing residential development at Templemore Mews and Donald Casey Court are on the opposite side of Templemore Road as seen in the earlier photograph and are some 30 metres from the proposed 2-storey apartments, with the road width being 17 metres. The scale of the apartments then increases in height towards Branch Roundabout on the corner, with a maximum of 4-storey reached at Block A, which is the yellow block, and Block B. The scale and increased height at the corner and onto the access road to Faustina Retail Park is considered appropriate at this key prominent corner. The dwellings located on Site A are 2-storey in height with dual frontage design onto the internal roads. Dwellings are positioned so that they have a back-to-back relationship with College Glen and are also separated from the site by a service road which leads to Faustina Retail Park. So this slide just shows the context plan and sections to the existing properties at College Glen. So section AA, which is the upper section, is the closest relationship between the proposed dwellings and the existing proposed plot at 78 and number 1 College Glen. The separation distance is 24.2 metres, well over the recommended separation distance of 20 metres between dwellings as per the guidance of Creating Places. In addition, number 1 College Glen is gable on to the application site with no windows to the gable elevation or roof profile. Given this relationship and separation distance, there will be no overlooking or overshadowing. Section BB, which is the lower section on the slide, shows a more typical arrangement between the existing proposed back-to-back dwellings with a significant separation distance. The section shows a distance of 45.2 metres, but all separation distances are over 40 metres. Again, given the separation distance, level differences and the intervening boundary treatments, there will be no overlooking or overshadowing or adverse impacts on nearby residential properties at College Glen. The proposed dwellings in this location will not have an adverse impact on nearby residential amenity, either through their scale, massing, design or overlooking. And this is a photograph again just to show the service road that serves Faustina Retail Park, which separates the proposed dwellings on that part of the site from the existing dwellings at College Glen. So this is a elevation showing the terrace of the 3 dwellings, which is house types A, A1 and AH. And this is the elevations and floor plans of a 2-storey, 5-person wheelchair accessible dwelling of plot 19. The dwellings and the apartments are finished in charcoal, black brick, with grey coloured render panels and with some raised render band surrounds to the windows, grey-black concrete roof tiles, and the windows are UPVC, secure by design. So this is an elevation and floor plans on plot 75 to 80, which is the dual frontage apartments onto Templemore Road, and these are 2-storey in height. And just another elevation and floor plans of a double fronted dwelling with a gable elevation at Site 1, and this is onto Templemore Road. So this is the elevations and floor plans of apartment block A, which is located on the roundabout at Branch Road. This apartment building steps up from 2, 3 up to 4-storey in height on the corner. And this is the elevations and floor plans of apartment block B, which fronts onto the existing road serving Faustina Retail Park and also onto the open space and onto the land which may be required for the future A2 road on the site. And this just shows the contextual elevations of the apartments onto Templemore Road, onto Branch Roundabout and onto the existing road serving Faustina Retail Park. So in terms of the policy assessment, this in considering the Dairy Area Plan 2011, the application site is located on unzoned land as defined in the Dairy Area Plan 2011. Whilst there is a previous approval for retail on the site is not zoned for retail uses. All uses, including housing, can be acceptable on unzoned land, provided it meets all other relevant and current planning policy and guidance and material considerations. The housing design and layout are acceptable under policies H1 and BE1 of the Dairy Area Plan. The 3 to 4 story apartment buildings are located on the key prominent corner of the site and will not impact on residential amenity. In considering policy H2 open space and PPS 8, there is adequate provision in both the pre-A2 layout, which provides 30% open space, and the post-A2 layout, which provides 17.5% open space, both of which are in excess of the 10% required by PPS 8. In considering policy ANV7 of the Dairy Area Plan and PPS 2, there are existing trees on the corner of the site at Branch Roundabout, which will be retained as part of the overall development. Additional planting is proposed, which would help to visually integrate the development, and a 2-metre buffer of planting will be provided at the boundary of those dwellings onto Faustina Retail Park. In terms of PPS 7 policy QD1, the layout, housing design, provision of open space, including communal open space, private amenity space standards, parking requirements and landscaping all meet the criteria of QD1. Careful consideration has been given to the separation distances and the concerns raised by the objectors in relation to design, scale, massing and overlooking. The layout as proposed demonstrates that there would be no adverse impact on existing residential amenity. So in considering PPS 15 FLD3, storm water will be discharged at Greenfield runoff rate at 25.2 litres per second and will be taken to the culverted watercourse which runs through the site. DFI Rivers have no objection and provided a condition that a final drainage assessment would be required prior to commencement of any development. HED have no objections under PPS 6, and on considering PPS 3, it has been demonstrated in the pre and post A2 layouts that this proposal will not prejudice the implementation of the A2 Transport Improvement Scheme. Access arrangements to the site are acceptable. Traffic calming is proposed within the site. Parking, whilst it does not meet full parking standards, is considered acceptable given the proximity of the site to local amenities and the fact the site is well served by public transport. And in considering PPS 2, Natural Environment Division considered the objections and also have no objections and have provided a conditions. So social housing need is a material consideration, and this development proposal is located in an area of housing need within the West Bank housing area. The housing need projection, as confirmed by the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, is currently 2,895 units between 2021 and 2026. Northern Ireland Housing Executive supports this proposal and the mix as proposed. So just to summarise, this proposal is considered acceptable in that it is in accordance with the Dairy Area Plan 2011 and all relevant plan and policy statements and material considerations. The representations received have been carefully considered, as well as the social housing need. Officers are of the opinion the overall material considerations support approval of this application, and the recommendation is to approve, subject to the final roads conditions being provided when the private streets determination drawings have been signed off. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Just before we go into the speakers, Councillor Dobbins had joined the meeting a bit earlier. We have the agent, Chris Bryson, and Mark Gilmore, applicant, for questions. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll be pleased to hear I don't plan to use my full 5 minutes of speaking time. As officers, and Sarah has already provided you with a good overview of the proposal. As agents for this application, we fully support and endorse the recommendation made by officers today to the committee. This application has been under consideration for over 2 years, and we have worked closely with officers to address all queries that have arisen during that determination process. The application was preceded with a lengthy pre-application discussion process when we tried to engage with DFI Roads and their consultants on the key issue of ensuring the proposal aligned with any future enhancement works relating to the A2 Buncrana Road. And we feel the proposal achieves the same. The layout has been future-proofed so that if or when the A2 upgrade works progress, this site will be largely unaffected by these works. A large area of the site has been set aside to accommodate a future road link from Templemore Road into Festina Retail Park, and this link road currently forms part of the DFI Road's initial designs for the A2 works. As Sarah has mentioned, no development is proposed in this area, and all dwellings have been sited a suitable distance from the area to ensure that there'll be no impact on residential amenity when these works are undertaken. The proposal is for social housing with a mix of housing types, including apartments, terrace houses, and semi-detached and detached dwellings. And as you've heard, there's a social housing need of just under 3,000 units in the West Bank up to 2026. And this scheme will help to deliver some much needed social housing in the area. The dwellings have been designed to the highest standards and all have private amenity or shared amenity space. There are large areas of public open space within the scheme which exceeds policy and guidance requirements. And again, you've heard of the separation distances and how far set back we are from existing properties nearby. Just to touch on the late item objection that members have reviewed from MBA planning and the accompanying reports, they all relate to the future A2 works and the potential impacts those works would have on the retail park. Just to be clear, this proposal does not include any A2 works and doesn't propose to close up the fifth arm of the roundabout. Therefore, we would urge members to set aside those comments and to consider them at the appropriate time. That is when the A2 upgrade scheme comes forward for approval. All statutory consultees are content with the proposal and there are no objections from consultees. And as you've all heard, the proposal fully complies with all relevant planning policies and guidance. And as all consultees are content with the proposal, we would ask members to endorse the officer's recommendation to approve this application. I'm happy to take questions that members may have. I also have with me Mr. Mark Gilmore of the EHA Group, who is also available to answer questions if members may have them. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any questions? Any members online? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Bryson and Mr. Gilmore. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Boyd.
Thanks, Chair. It's not in front of me here, Chair, and it's really, I know it's not pertinent to the application, but perhaps the agent knows the answer to this. It's in relation to access from the proposed A2. I understand obviously that the final decision on whether the fifth arm, as it's called, of the roundabout will or will not be. There's no final decision on that, and you know we all know roads take time, and we don't know when that would be. There's also a current existing, another existing access egress into the car park for the retail park. Does the agent happen to know what the proposal is in relation to that access point? If you understand that there's an access point at the roundabout, there's another one slightly up from the roundabout in the Buncrana Road, currently extant. Is that to be taken away? Do you know?
Through the chair, I'm not sure about that. Is that the service road access? Members?
No, that's
about? No.
No, Chris, that's actually a different road again.
Okay. Right.
Well, if you don't know, that's fine. That's okay.
I know. Sorry, I know there's an out road that comes back out onto Buncrana Road from the retail park, but that's an out only. That's an egress only road.
Okay. All right. No, that's okay. No, that's fine, Chair. It's just that the A2 is going to be subject, I would imagine, to a number of these sorts of queries because there are quite a significant number of access roads into different areas of housing along there, but it's, again, it's one for another day for planners and the road service. So that's okay. It was just a straightforward enough query in relation to that. But again, I understand there's no bearing in this application as well.
Boy, any other queries? No. Questions for the officer?
Chair, can I just come in there, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Lowe.
I was just wondering, did I hear the officer right when she said black brick? And she was describing the makeup of the houses. Did I hear saying black brick?
Through the chair, just to clarify, it's more charcoal color, so that clarifies that.
Okay, Councillor Lowe.
That's okay,
Charcoal.
thank you, okay.
Any other questions for the officer? Councillor Jackson.
Chair, I don't have a question per se, but I just want to make a comment on on how well the application's been put together. It is a quality development in an area where there's a really high housing need, and I suppose in this committee it's been well rehearsed around the tremendous pressure that's been put on it's been put on housing associations to deliver on the housing need. And if we do have sites that become available that would be suitable for housing need, I think that it's a very positive step that they're considered for housing. This site in particular is very close to our Templemore Sports Complex, which will undoubtedly be a great asset to the future tenants. Particularly whenever our council's strategic ledger projects are delivered on. It's fantastic to see that the developer has taken into consideration the much needed and our ambitious plans to upgrade the A2. And it's great to see that this application doesn't have any hindrance or doesn't prohibit work to the A2 at all. So my viewing of this application is that it's a quality application that it takes a small step, but it's a step towards addressing the huge housing need in that area. So on that vein, I'm happy to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation to approve.
Thanks, Chair. Well, just again briefly, I share Councillor Jackson's view on this. Evidently, we all understand that there is a significant challenge in providing quality social housing for residents of our city and district. This is actually a good example of taking land that has had a bit of a contentious planning history associated and attached to it. It has effectively lain vacant for as long as I can remember, in truth. And it's always appeared to be the case that no one was ever going to do anything with it. And in a sense, this makes good sense to apply it to dealing with the challenges around social housing. Again, just again to congratulate the developer in relation to future proofing it with the access road. I did initially have some thought around the idea that this might be a rat run, the new access road into the car park or the retail park, but I just wouldn't see the logic. I'm not a driver, but I wouldn't see the logic of a driver using a slow moving car park as a rat run, which effectively what was being suggested by some. And who knows what the ultimate outworkings will be for the Buncrana Road A2 development. I would be of a view that the fifth arm should be retained from the roundabout, but that's an argument for another day. But just again, to welcome the development. It's well thought out. It's very well planned, and I'll quite happily and contented to second the proposal from Councillor Jackson on behalf of the committee.
Okay, it's proposed and second. Is there anyone against? Anyone online against it? Is there any abstentions? All in favour then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Item 2. Sarah?
Item 2 is LA 11 2022 0221F. This is a Section 54 application for variation of Condition 44 of the previously approved application A 2006-0441. So that is in relation to the outline approval on Hitch 2. The lands are accessed from Skeg Roundabout to the west of Buncrana Road, north of River Glen and southwest of numbers 30, 32 and 34 Coshquin Road, identified as the Hitch 2 zone in the Derry Area Plan. And the recommendation is to approve. So this is just to show you the site location plan and the Hitch 2 approved concept, which was approved at outline stage. This slide is for information purposes only, and the plan shows the detailed design and realignment of Coshquin Road and White House Road, which is submitted as part of the current Reserved Matters application. Again, this slide is for information purposes only, and it's the plan showing White House Road stopping up and realignment, which is submitted again as part of the detailed design of the current Reserved Matters application. So in relation to the specific application to vary Condition 44 of the outline approval, Condition 44 reads, at or prior to the first Reserved Matters or first full application and before building or engineering operation shall commence, the stopping up abandonment of Coshquin Road and White House Road shall be completed. So the proposed amendment to vary Condition 44 is for to read that prior to commencement of development, the stopping up abandonment order for Coshquin Road and White House Road shall be made. No dwelling shall be occupied until the stopping up abandonment order for Coshquin Road and White House Road shall be in operation. So just as way of background, outline plan permission was granted for part of the Hitch 2 zoning with an approved concept master plan for the entire zoning and an associated Section 76 legal agreement and Article 122 agreement with DFI Roads. As part of the outline planning approval, Coshquin Road is required to be stopped up and abandoned, and White House Road is required to be stopped up and incorporated into the new Spine Road, which will serve the development site. The abandonment has to be legislated for through a stopping up abandonment order, and this is what formed Condition 44 of the outline approval. Where an abandonment order is required for a development, the developer must apply under Article 68 of the Roads Northern Ireland Order 1993. This process has been commenced between the developer and DFI Roads, and this can take up to 12 months. One representation has been received in the application from number 42 Coshquin Road, and in summary, the issues are that they object to the development as they have lived in their property for 40 years. The property is surrounded by shrubbery and wildlife and is an asset to the environment and bats in the adjoining sheds, and it states that the owner will be remaining in their property. So in considering the objection, this specific application is to vary the wording of Condition 44 of the outline planning permission, which relates specifically to the timing of the abandonment and stopping up orders for Coshquin Road and White House Road, which were conditioned as part of that outline approval. Coshquin Road is required to be stopped up and the road abandoned to accommodate the delivery of the main development Spine Road to serve the housing on the Hitch 2 zoned lands. Whilst the objector's concerns are acknowledged, this application is a Section 54 to vary the wording of the Condition 44, which was previously approved. The abandonment process is a separate legislative requirement dealt with through DFI Roads. So in considering the amended wording of condition 44, officers are aware that the developer has submitted the stopping up abandonment order to DFA Roads, and this is currently being progressed by DFA Roads. The proposed amended wording to the condition will ensure that any future reserve matters application can proceed for a decision to committee in advance of the final order being made, but it does restrict development commencing on the site. The previous wording of the condition prevented this. The amended wording also restricts occupation of any dwelling on the site until the stopping up and abandonment orders are in operation. This allows the developer flexibility to progress with any reserve matters applications on the H2 site so that the applications are not delayed. The current wording of condition 44 would prevent the developer from doing this until the stopping up and abandonment of the roads would be completed and be in operation at or prior to the first reserve matters or full application. So the amendment as proposed is considered acceptable to both officers and DFA Roads. It will ensure the stopping up and abandonment orders can be progressed and delivered, but it will not delay the processing of the reserve matters application on the H2 site. The amended wording will not impact the delivery or comprehensive development of the zoning. This will enable the first reserve matters application to be progressed to committee for a decision, which is expected shortly. Therefore, the recommendation is to approve. Thank you.
Okay, and there's two speakers, Tom Stokes and Robin Nichols.
Afternoon, Chair. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Perfect, Chair. We've just registered to speak just in case any of the members have any questions. Sarah's set out very clearly, I suppose, the rationale for this Section 54 application, which is really just to allow and facilitate the timing of the wider reserved matters applications, which some members may be aware of, to come forward, hopefully, to committee shortly. But as I said, Robin and I are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Any member online? No. Thank you, Tom and Robin.
Thank you,
Any
Chair.
questions for the officer? Mr. Boyle?
There's no questions from anybody online, Chair. I think we could expedite this particular matter. It's very obvious and evident that this is a much needed requirement for the progression of the development, and so therefore I'm proposing that we accept the recommendation today. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jackson.
Well, the Chair, and on the same vein, I'm happy to second the proposal. The H2 site has been a site that we've discussed for quite a considerable period in this committee, and it's really encouraging to hear that a full application or reserve matters application is due quite soon. So if this application allows a sort of clear passage for that reserve matters application to be considered, I'm delighted that we're able to do so with this committee. So on that vein, I'm more than happy to second the proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone against? Any abstentions? All in favour? Yeah. Okay, unanimous. And now item 5. Suzanne, and there's late items. It's only photographs, isn't it? You just give a couple of minutes, it's only photographs, just. Okay, all ready to go? Go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Okay, members, so this is an application for a site for 2 dwellings and 2 garages on the Art Ground Road, and it's LA 11 2020 06650. I've shared the location plan in front of you. You can see the site outlined in red, and you can see the line through the middle in terms of the proposal for the 2 houses. Here is a satellite image just of an overhead of the site. Just gives you an idea of the area. I've also included here some photos taken from the adjacent road, the Art Ground Road. The first photo is taken looking south. The site's off to your left, and the second photo is taken from the north, just as the land rises just up from the existing farm. So in terms of policy context, it's outlined in your reports, the Dairy Area Plan, the SPPS, and the Plan and Policy Statements 3, 21 and 2. And in terms of the consultee responses, there are no objections from any of the consultees in relation to the application in front of us. Environmental Health did provide advice regarding proximity to the adjacent farm buildings to the north. So looking then at the objections and the representations that have been received, there's been 1 letter of support from the applicant's grandfather. That's also included in your late information pack. And there has been 1, just obviously quoting family reasons, sites for a family member. There's been 1 objection highlighting quite extensive plan and policy concerns regarding the site in terms of its failure to meet CTY 8 and the interpretation of CTY 8. And the ability of the site and the fact that it doesn't reflect a small gap. Also, the supplementary planning guidance has been mentioned, as well as CTY 14 and the draft local development plan, which clearly, as members, is not a material consideration at this stage. The objections have been addressed individually within your report, and in terms of the actual policy consideration of the site, I think it might be helpful. I'm just going to flick back here to the actual map, if I can, to take you through the policy context. So the site there sits, obviously, it's a road frontage site. You have 3 existing dwellings in a farm group to the northwest along the road. Due to the sort of the distance, the very mature screening that's around number 74 and number 70 up here, as well as the farm group, none of these dwellings are actually intervisible on the road as you travel along the road, either statically or transiently. At no point there can you view any of those existing buildings together. Therefore, there is no existing substantial or continuously built up frontage at the moment. So we would be recommending that it would not meet CTY 8. It wouldn't be an appropriate gap site. Secondly, in terms of then putting a pair of dwellings on this site, 2 dwellings, the front portion of a larger agricultural field, it's your classic suburban road frontage development, that would constitute the creation of urban development, which obviously then is detrimental to the rural character, which means that the proposal would be contrary to CTY 14 as well. So in terms of the policy consideration, we have referred to CTY 8 and CTY 14, and the representations have been considered. In terms of the letter of support, it doesn't demonstrate why 2 dwellings are required at this site, and there's no policy provision for the proposed need that's being stated. There's valid planning concerns outlined by the objector, and there's strong policy reasons that recommend refusal of the proposal. Late information has been submitted from the agent. These were photos that were originally submitted with the application. I've just included them. They're obviously photos that have been taken from a drone, and quite similar to the aerial photograph that I included at the start of the presentation in terms of the satellite image. So obviously the critical views from the road here, and you could just see a bit more detail there in terms of the vegetation you can see, but really other than providing the overhead view, I don't think it really adds anything. The agent has submitted these photographs. Again, the first photograph on the left, it's taken from the agent's car on the Ardground Road, and you can see that is the farm complex down below. The farm, but I mean, quite clearly, there's no common road frontage there. The farm complex is actually the farm buildings. There's a small paddock with some trees interspersed and quite a thick belt of vegetation between the farm buildings and the road. And the second photo there is looking towards the building number 3, which is number 74, I think. So clearly there's no substantially built up frontage in that one either. And this is just the site layout that the agent has put in as well, just for completeness members. So, I mean, you know, in terms of my assessment of the additional information, you know, it does demonstrate there's no visual linkage. It does demonstrate there's no common frontage. It does actually demonstrate heavy screening, and the drone images are useful in terms of the overhead sort of understand of the site, but they're not relevant to demonstrating visual linkage. So in summary, refusal has been recommended on the basis of the SPPS and PPS 21 in relation to policy CTY 18 and 14. Thank you.
Suzanne. Andy Tate, the agent.
Hear me okay?
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Chair. Policy CTY 8 states, for the purpose of policy, the definition of substantial and built up frontage includes a line of 3 or more buildings along a road frontage. So if you look at the site plan that I submitted, the application site is a gap in a line of 7 buildings along a frontage of Ardground Road. These buildings include 3 dwellings and farm buildings. There's also 4 private accesses onto the Ardground Road at this point. 3 of these are to dwellings and 1 to a farmyard. The plan officer's report states that the buildings adjacent to the sites on both sides are not visible from the site. They have included photographs on the report. These photos are not great and taken from the worst possible angles to back up the refusal decision. If you go to the photographs that I submitted as a late item, you will see that I've taken the photographs from the road edge and at the center of the site. You will see from one of the photographs looking towards number 74, building number 3 on the site plan, you will see the Yolande hedge and the top of the gable of the dwelling. This is also visible from Google Street View. Now looking in our direction towards the farmyard, this photo is taken in the same position. You will see 2 farm buildings and a dwelling. These buildings are 4 and 6 on the site plan, and building 7 is number 80 Ardground Road. From the photographs I submitted, you can clearly see the buildings to both sides of the sites, so the planning report and photographs that they have provided are not accurate. Members will also see in the late item submission that I have submitted drone images of the site and the neighbouring properties. These were taken from different angles and clearly show a built-up frontage of more than 3 buildings. These photos were submitted to the case officer during the course of the application, so I don't understand why they were not used as part of the case officer's report, as they will give members a better understanding of the sites. If members look at the site plan that I submitted as a late item, they will see that I have included plot sizes. You will see the proposed sites will have a 48 to 49 metre frontage. These match the plot sizes in the area, which range between 40 and 70 metres. This site plan was also submitted to the case officer during the course of the application, which was also not included in the case officer's report. Point 12 of the case officer's report states that the proposal requires removal of long-established hedgerows. This is also not entirely correct. As per DFI's consultation dated 13th of the 10th 20, they state to achieve the required visibility displays to the southeast, will require approximately 16 metres of hazing at number 74 Our Ground Road to be faced back along a road. We are confident the haze will not be fully removed, but faced as per roads recommendations. To finish off, I'd like to say that I'm disappointed that the planner's recommendation for these two sites, as per photos on the site maps, they are clearly to show that they are gap sites. I'm also disappointed that it has taken 2 years to reach a negative recommendation, and that the case officer's report is not totally accurate, and the photographs included gives the members a poor perspective of both sites. So I'd ask members to look at the information that I have provided and look favourably at overturning this recommendation to an approval so my client can move forward to building his family home. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for the agent?
Chair, Alderman Kerrigan here. Apologies, I'm on the mobile phone, so I'm not on the iPad. I don't have access to a chat box.
Go ahead, and Alderman McClintock after.
Thank you, Chair. Andy, I'm just clarifying again, to be truthful, when I had looked at it, I did think, size-wise, it did appear suitable size in comparison to other plots on that section of road, and it does appear as a gap site. To be fair, I would have been leaning towards that. I haven't looked at the report. I'm just querying there. I suppose you're stating that. Sorry, where I'm coming from then, you are along the lines of here, Andy, that this is when you're stating that it's going to be gap sites here, that which I would be leaning towards that way. That's counteracting then. That's the reason then that you went for two permissions on that. I suppose in case of instead of just the one, because it would be too large of a site for one dwelling house. I think it is as your line on it there, and then you're querying then as well. You're again the first refusal reason there, no overriding reason to be present in this location, which I'm under the very area plan. This is a young fella then that's looking to look after family members, or maybe it's this young fella that's going to maybe take on a family farm, or I'm just looking for as I say, the first refusal reason is no overriding reason why it should be in that area. So if you could touch on that. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks very much, Councillor Kerrigan. If we had applied for one site, the plot size would have been too big. So that's why we split on the two sites to comply with the policy, which means the plot sizes were matches the plot size of the area. So I stated in my chat there, 48 to 49 meters per plot. My client's grandfather lives at number 74, the house there in that photograph of the land they hedge on. That's his land around it. So it's the intention for my client to move back to this area instead of moving away. So say that's the reason why I went for CTY8, because in my opinion it is a gap. It's a built up frontage, and as you can see from the photographs on your screen, the site, you can view, you would know looking at that there's a dwelling there. You land a hedge around it. You've got the gable of the house. If you look at our direction, you can clearly see the farm buildings. You can see the farmhouse of the neighbouring land. So I don't take that argument that you can't, it's not visible. So I hope that answers your question, Keith.
Happy enough, Keith?
No, I'm content enough at the minute. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we have Alderman McClintock and then Alderman Hussey. So,
Thank
Alderman
you.
McClintock.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Andy. And actually, quite strangely enough, my colleague there asked one of the questions, but no discussion between the two of us, asked one of the, or just I mentioned one of the things that I was going to say about, because the gap site is obviously big enough for two dwellings, and that's obviously the reason why that you want to put two in there rather than one. The other thing, I've listened carefully to what the officer's interpretation of CTY8 is, and I suppose what I'm thinking is, clearly see from your pictures that the visibility aspect is this, obviously the screening is nearly a factor that slightly obscures it, but I mean, I can see clearly from your pictures that there is a link between those. Just to give you an opportunity, just if you wanted to say anything on that, but it looks to me as if the boundary screening has really caused a wee bit of an issue there, because there's clearly a visibility between the buildings there in that area. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris McClintock. Yeah, that's why I included them photographs, because when I read the case officer's report, I think the most argument was they say that you could not view the buildings from the roadside. You couldn't see them between the sites. That's why I took photographs. That's why I took them from a road edge to show you can quite clearly see the buildings in both photographs. And if you look, you can clearly see the farmyard, but if you look at the other direction, where you land the hazes, number 74, building number 3, you can see this white soffit and the gable of the house. And if you want to check yourselves in Google Street View, it's you'll see the same images. So hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks. Thank you.
And Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the agent. By the way, as a comment, can I say I welcome the statement that you made about folk moving back into the rural area. It's something that I'm quite passionate about, that we need people living in the countryside. One thing that was said by the officer in her presentation was that she had the view that this was ribbon development. Now, for me, ribbon development is at the ends of the of a site, and I find it strange that that term was used, and I will be asking the officer about that. Have you any comment yourself as to why the officer would consider this to be ribbon development? Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hussey. Yeah, well, if we had applied for, basically, say, if you look at the site plan, if we'd applied for one site, half of that area, I can understand that it'd be ribbon development, that you'd be creating a gap between. But the fact that we've applied for 2 sites, so that there's a similar size to the plot sizes, then we won't be creating ribbon development, because there's buildings either side of it. You'll have number 74, and then you'll have the farmyard, you'll have number 80. So no, we're definitely no ribbon development as regards this here site.
Thank you, Chair and Agent. That's a very comprehensive answer. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. I think I do understand the concept of ribbon development myself well enough. But the narrative here, Andy, that's being presented to this committee, and indeed a representation from the applicant's grandfather, suggests that is with the ambition to reside in this area. And I'm all for people living in the countryside as well, well within reason. I might add, however, Andy, the obvious question that I have is, if that is the case, then why are we looking at the development of 2 houses, one that's quite evident that a person can only live in one? What would be happening with the second house as proposed in this development?
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Well, if we had applied for one site on this portion of land, it wouldn't comply with planning policy, because the plot would be far too big. The plot would be 90 metres. So that's the reason why we've applied for 2, to comply with the planning policy. And also, there's this the client's Cameron Nutt he's one of a number of grandchildren, so it opens up for our family members to use our site if required, which it will be used. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation there. Actually, there was one question to ask you. In relation to the photographs you've taken and presented to us today, Am I right in saying that the photographs you're taking from the car, are they from an elevated position? But it seems to be that the camera angle is looking from down into a field. Perhaps I've got it wrong, but maybe if you were on the ground level, walking along, maybe somebody my height, you wouldn't see into the field. So you had mature vegetation, but it seems to me that the photograph's taken from an elevated position. Could you give me more information about that? Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, no problem. It's probably because I'm 6'5". I just took it from the edge of the road there. The other one's taken from the sort of the middle of the road, so you can clearly see over the hedge. Like, you know, the hedge is not that big. So and it's taken from the center of the site, and that's where the access will be. So when we have to clear a wee portion of that hedge to create the access, you will be able to see buildings from both sides of the access. So hope that answers your question.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Just before questions to the officer, Maura wants to make a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just as a matter of clarification, before you ask detailed questions to the officers, I just want to say that, you know, officers are required to visit the site and do an assessment, you know, on site and take photographs. And it's that assessment, professional assessment, that we require them to do to form the report. And we don't always or don't usually put in other photographs belonging to others, whether it's objectors or applicants or agents. So that those photographs are taken and they're trained to do that, you know, from ground level, and they're from different angles or whatever the case may be. So I can't accept that those photographs aren't real. They're real photographs taken from real cameras by officers carrying out their normal procedures. So I think that it's important to point that out, that they are accurate. Thank you.
Questions for the officer? Any questions for the officer? Online?
Chair, Alderman Kerrigan here. Sorry, I didn't get typed up quick enough. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. Suzanne, just querying there in regards to it. In regards to that site there, you've obviously looked at it there, and it's been looked at there. Is there any grounds that whereby you can see? I mean, there'd be no merit because, as the agent has stated, if you had to put an application in for one dwelling house and that, would this have been turned down as well? Because I mean, it's the case that it's too large of gap site for one dwelling house, and just querying that. I know he's applied for two because it's appropriate size. And would you confirm, are you content enough that the size of the sites are appropriate with the others on that section of road? So just clarification on that. Thank you, Suzanne.
Okay, through the chair. If we were looking at an application for one dwelling on this site, the issues would be the same, that there's no substantially built up frontage on the ground. There's actually no existing road frontage development that actually contributes to a substantially built up frontage. It's only in that position would you be able to then look at citing a building on that site. In terms of the plot sizes, we've made a call on that in the report. The plot sizes are within, you know, the general settlement pattern of the area, but the plot sizes is not the determining issue here. It's the fact that there's actually no substantially built up frontage on the ground. This in policy terms is not an equal opportunity, members.
Okay, any other questions?
Chair, I've my name in that box, Alderman Clintic.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see it.
Yeah, quite right.
Go ahead, Alderman McClintock.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute there. Suzanne, thanks for that. Can you just confirm that the ribbon development, I'm struggling to see the ribbon development there. Is there any element of that as interpretation? I think maybe you said at the beginning that the interpretation of CTY8 that it was ribbon development. I find it difficult just to see how the rural character will be how there'll be issues of the rural character of the area just for the CTY 14. Just anything more you can give me in that. Thank you.
Okay, through the chair. Okay, thanks, Councillor McClintock. In terms of the policy interpretation of ribbon development, okay, paragraph 5.33 of CTY 8 talks about buildings sited back, staggered at angles and with gaps between them can still represent ribbon development if they have a common frontage or they are visually linked. I'm talking about the creation of ribbon development by the proposal, by the creation of 2 suburban dwellings on this site. You know, the policy, you know, PPS 21 only allows for certain types of applications on the countryside. It doesn't allow the development of a gap for 2 road frontage dwellings only if it's an infill opportunity, and this is not. So the creation of 2 roadside dwellings is very suburban, and it's something that we don't want to see. You know, we don't want to have throughout the countryside, and it's really, you know, that's the issue in terms of rural character. If you then move on to CTY 14, which is rural character, it talks about build up from ribbon development and build up from other you know, changes to the rural character within the area. So it is the creation of ribbon development is relevant to this site, and it is very, very material in terms of the determination.
Okay. Alderman McClintock, you happy enough?
Yes, thanks.
Alderman Hussey.
Thank you. Suzanne, you will have heard me querying the issue also of ribbon development with the agent, and I found the agent's response very plausible, and in fact a deliberate measure to mitigate against ribbon development, which I congratulate the agent on. Do you have any further comment on it, or is it just the comment that you already given to Alderman McClintock? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Hussey, I can further advise you that in policy CTY 14 in rural character, criteria D, so it says planning permission will be granted for a building in the countryside where it does not cause detrimental change to or further erode the rural character of the area. Criteria D refers to it creates or adds to a ribbon of development. Okay, so the creation of ribbon development, and I know that's a point you raised earlier, the creation of ribbon development is a material consideration in the determination of the site.
Chair, I want to just come back briefly on that. I mean, the agent himself has admitted if it was one site being applied on this particular location, he himself would accept that's ribbon development. The double application mitigates against ribbon development. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other questions or need a proposal? Councillor Boyd?
Not so much a question as a comment, Chair. In my view, what we're looking at here is something that appears to be contrived to achieve a particular result. And the agent himself has actually more or less admitted that by saying, we knew if we only applied for one house, we wouldn't get permission. So we had decided to apply for 2 instead. The minute you do that, then you are then falling foul, in my view, of the requirement to avoid ribbon development. And if we're going to proceed in this manner moving forward, then we're probably likely going to see even more of this. And I really think that would be a very unwise development in the countryside, because it would perhaps erode the very vital character that we want to see in rural areas and neighbourhoods. Notwithstanding the fact, of course, that people do want to live in rural neighbourhoods, it's the other factor that I would have particular concern around. And so that would be my comment on this, Chair. And to that end, if nobody else has any other questions, I will make a proposal. Okay, thank you. No other questions, Chair. I am proposing that we accept the officer recommendation here in front of us today.
Seconder? Councillor Mooney? All those against?
I'm against.
I'm against as well, Chair.
Sorry, Maura will take the names. Just start with 4, will we?
Just run through the vote, Chair. I don't read
Okay,
the name,
right, okay.
just run through it as a vote. Thank you. Members, this is a vote for item 5, and the proposal is to accept the officer's recommendation. Alderman Alan Breslin,
Against.
Alderman Derek Hussey,
Against the proposal to accept the officer's recommendation.
thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan,
Against, Maura.
thank you. Alderman Hilary McClintock,
Against, Maura.
okay. Councillor Jason Barr, Councillor Barr, I'll come back. Councillor John Boyle,
Or
thank you. Councillor Angela Dobbins,
Sorry, I don't agree with the proposer, so I'm against.
thank you. Councillor Paul Gallagher,
You all right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not
Councillor Gallagher,
No, that's no bother.
See you Friday.
I'll call again. Councillor Gallagher, I know Paul's on the line. I'll come back. Councillor Christopher Jackson,
Against, Maura.
thank you. Councillor Dan Kelly,
Against, Maura.
thank you. Councillor Patricia Logue,
Against.
thank you. Councillor Kieran Maguire, thank you. Councillor Philip McKinney's apologies, and Councillor Sean Mooney. I'll just go back for the 2, Chair, that we're missing. Councillor Jason Barr. No. And Councillor Paul Gallagher.
Or
Oh, right.
I'm having trouble here.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Chair. Yeah. So that's 3 for, 9 against, Chair.
Okay, the proposal falls. Do we have another proposal? Keith? Alderman Kerrigan?
All right, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to flick between 2 screens here. Let me see here, Chair, now when I'm looking at it here. Chair, in regards to Chair, looking at this at the section of the road, I would come to a different conclusion in regards to the CTUI 8 and CTUI 14 in regards to the I would be minded it is a gap site. I'd be minded in that section of the Airground Road that the majority, I know where the officers have recommended and are stating that it is the issues with the road frontage, but the vast majority of the dwellings on that section and particularly on that side of the road are all set back from it, as far as I would maintain. So I would be minded it could be kept in line. I still think it's an outline application. So in that regard, I would come to the conclusion that I would be more minded that it is a gap site, Chair, and I would be more along the lines of proposing that that it does comply with CTY. It will not create a ribbon development, but it'll fall in as a gap site. So, Chair, I would be minded if that's acceptable. That I would propose that we would not accept the officer's recommendation to refuse, Chair, and whatever conditions or whatever, as in regards to the type of houses or whatever conditions the officers saw fit, I'm content enough to go along that line, Chair. So if that's acceptable, thank you, Chair.
Happy to second, Chair Derek here.
Before we take any vote, we need to go into committee. Philip wants to brief the committee.
Propose we go into committee, Chair.
I second that.